Hello, dear friends. Welcome back to Golden Echoes Hub. It's Charlotte here, and I'm so happy to be with you today for another story from my journey. I'm 80 now, sitting in my little seaside apartment in St. Augustine, Florida, where the ocean whispers outside my window, and the sunsets are a sight to behold. But today, I want to take you back to a time when I was 70. A time when I poured my heart into a special project for my grandkids. A quilt that became a tapestry of our family's memories. This story is called A Quilt of Love at 75. Memories for my grandkids. And it's about the joy of creating something lasting. The power of family and the beauty of passing down love through the years. So settle in with a warm cup of tea, maybe a cozy blanket. And let's go back to a crisp fall afternoon in 2010 in Asheville, North Carolina. It was the fall of 2010, and I was 75 years old, still living in my house in Asheville, the one Tom and I had built our life in. By then, I'd found so many ways to fill my days with joy after losing Tom in '92. My garden was a haven. I'd traveled to Savannah on my own at 71. I'd learned to swim at 73. And I'd made dear friends who brought laughter back into my life. But that fall, I felt a new kind of longing, a desire to create something tangible, something my grandkids, Lily and Ethan, could hold on to long after I was gone. They were 10 and 8 years old then, growing up so fast, and I wanted to give them a piece of our family's story. Something they could wrap around themselves and feel my love. No matter where life took them, I'd always loved sewing. When I was a young mother, I'd made little dresses for Emily and curtains for Daniel's room, my hands steady on my old Singer sewing machine. After Tom passed, I'd taken up quilting as a way to keep busy. Joining a quilting circle at the church where we'd laugh and stitch for hours. But I'd never made a quilt with a purpose like this before. I wanted this quilt to be special. A patchwork of memories, each square telling a story about our family, about Tom, about the love that had held us together through the years. I started the project in September, pulling out my fabric scraps from a wooden chest in the attic. There were so many memories in that chest. Bits of fabric from Emily's first dress, a piece of Tom's old flannel shirt, a scrap from the curtains in the kids' nursery. I spread them out on my dining room table, running my fingers over the textures, each piece bringing back a flood of memories. I decided the quilt would be for both Lily and Ethan to share. A big, cozy blanket they could cuddle under together. I wanted it to be a map of our family's history, with squares that told stories they could carry into the future. The first square I made was for Tom. I used a piece of his favorite blue flannel shirt, the one he'd worn when we'd go apple picking with the kids. I stitched a little apple tree in the center, using green and red thread, and I embroidered the words Grandpa Tom's Orchard in tiny letters. As I sewed, I talked to Tom in my mind, telling him about the kids, about how much they'd grown, about how I wished he could see them now. "You'd be so proud of them," I whispered, my eyes misty. That square became the heart of the quilt, a reminder of the man who'd given us so much love. The next square was for Emily, my daughter. I used a piece of fabric from her wedding dress, soft white cotton with a delicate lace trim. I stitched a little bouquet of flowers, like the ones she'd carried on her wedding day, and I added the words Mama Emily's Day in a gentle cursive. I remembered that day so clearly. Emily walking down the aisle, her smile brighter than the sun. Tom holding my hand as we watched our little girl start her own family. Sewing that square felt like wrapping Emily in a hug, even though she was miles away in Raleigh. For Daniel, my son, I chose a piece of denim from a pair of jeans he'd worn as a teenager, always running around the backyard, pretending to be an astronaut. I stitched a little rocket ship with a trail of stars behind it, and I wrote Uncle Daniel's Dreams in bold letters. Daniel was out in California then, chasing his own dreams, and I wanted him to know how much I believed in him, how much I always had. That square made me smile, thinking of the boy who'd always reached for the stars. For Lily and Ethan, I made 2 special squares. For Lily, I used a piece of pink fabric from a dress I'd made her when she was 3. And I stitched a little ballerina because she loved to dance. I wrote Lily's Twirl in a playful font, imagining her spinning around the living room, her laughter filling the house. For Ethan, I used a scrap of green fabric from a shirt he'd worn on his first day of school. And I stitched a little soccer ball because he was always kicking a ball around the yard. I wrote Ethan's goal next to it, thinking of the way his face would light up when he scored. I added other squares too, ones for the garden with a rose stitched in red thread, one for our old house with a tiny chimney puffing smoke, even one for my knitting circle with a pair of needles and a ball of yarn. Each square took hours to sew, my hands slower than they used to be. But I loved every minute of it. I'd sit at my dining room table, a cup of tea beside me, the autumn light streaming through the window, and I'd lose myself in the memories. Sometimes I'd cry, missing Tom so much it hurt. But more often I'd smile, feeling the love of my family all around me. It took me 3 months to finish the quilt. By the time I sewed the last stitch, it was December, and the air was crisp with the promise of winter. The quilt was a patchwork of colors: blues, pinks, greens, whites, all stitched together with a soft flannel backing I'd bought at the fabric store. I wrapped it in tissue paper and tied it with a red ribbon, ready to give to Lily and Ethan when they came for Christmas. I couldn't wait to see their faces, to tell them the stories behind each square. Christmas morning that year was magical. Emily and the kids arrived early, their cheeks pink from the cold, and we gathered in the living room around the tree. I handed the quilt to Lily and Ethan, my hands trembling with excitement. "This is for both of you," I said, "to keep you warm and to remind you of our family." They unwrapped it together, their eyes wide as they spread it out on the floor. "It's so pretty, Grandma," Lily said, running her fingers over the ballerina square. Ethan pointed to the soccer ball. "That's me," he said, grinning. I sat with them on the couch, the quilt draped over our laps, and I told them the stories behind each square. They listened with big eyes as I talked about Grandpa Tom's apple tree, Mama Emily's wedding, Uncle Daniel's rocket ship. They giggled at the thought of me knitting with my friends, and they traced the roses with their little fingers, asking about the garden. Emily sat beside us, her eyes misty as she looked at the square from her wedding dress. "Mama, this is beautiful," she said, squeezing my hand. They'll treasure this forever. That quilt became a part of our family. Lily and Ethan would fight over who got to sleep with it. So Emily made a rule. They'd take turns each night. They'd bring it out when they visited me, and we'd cuddle under it while I read them stories. The fabric soft against our skin. Even now, at 80, I hear from Emily that they still use it. Lily, who's 15 now, wraps it around her shoulders when she's studying. And Ethan, who's 13, takes it on camping trips. It's a little worn at the edges, but it's still holding strong. Just like our family. Making that quilt at 75 taught me something important. The things we create with love can live on long after we're gone. It's a way to hold our loved ones close, to pass down our stories, to wrap them in the warmth of our memories. I may not be able to be with Lily and Ethan forever, but I know that quilt will be there. A piece of me, a piece of Tom, a piece of our family, keeping them warm through the years. That's my story for today, dear friends. If you've ever made something special for your family, or if you have a keepsake that holds your memories, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Golden Echoes Hub. I'll see you soon.